Hello, I'm Natasha Hussein, and this is Newsfeed, your dose of what people are talking about online. The European Union is investigating whether TikTok has broken the bloc's new strict online safety rules. Regulators are probing if TikTok breached safeguards protecting children and if the app's addictive design risks exposing users, especially minors, to harmful content. If regulators find TikTok to be in breach of the EU's Digital Services Act, the social media platform faces a fine of up to 6% of its global turnover. That could total hundreds of millions of dollars. Rules under the act came into effect last Saturday and require platforms to stop the spread of harmful content. The EU's official probe into TikTok follows its analysis of a risk assessment report. Cybersecurity expert Babatunde Ologboro from the UK-based global security firm TASC joins us now from Abuja. Now, Babatunde, how alarming are these breaches that TikTok is accused of under the Digital Services Act?
The breaches are quite serious. TikTok is a popular social media platform that is used by over a billion people. It could lead to so many fines, which could be tens of thousands of millions of pounds. It could lead to so many personal data, so many confidential information could be released out there and could be accessed by unauthorized and illegal adversaries out there. So it is quite serious.
So I guess in the spotlight is what TikTok is doing with our information. Big privacy concerns that we're seeing. The EU has accused TikTok of using so-called dark patterns as well.
It's to trick people, basically. That is what it is. That is the whole aim of dark patterns. Is to basically just trick people into giving out more than they would want to on a normal day. So, so when you're signing up for TikTok, for example, you could see you could see so many boxes that they ask you that do you want to opt in for this or do you want to opt in for that? Most people don't really understand it, and it is sometimes it is written in such a way that it is hard to understand. For regular people, it is hard for them to actually understand what they are signing up for, and especially children. Children wouldn't understand the consequences, and they will just take it and assuming that it is okay, but it's not.
What are some of the effective measures that TikTok has in place now to protect children? There are, of course, parental controls and age verification, but are those measures actually effective?
Like you said, there are parental controls in place at the moment, but in my opinion, I don't think the controls are effective, right? So if anybody has an iPhone or any social media or any smart device, can just download TikTok, and once they download TikTok, they don't have to create an account, right? You don't have to create an account to have access to all the content have access to most of the content on TikTok, right? So it is done in such a way that I don't think it's effective at all. Anybody can just download TikTok, and once you download TikTok, you don't have to create an account, right? And once it's on your phone, you can have access to all kinds of all kinds of content, which could be inappropriate or not.
For minors, it's pretty easy for you to dodge the age verification and parental control, seeing as you could just get on TikTok and see everything without having to actually sign up. So how effective is the EU's Digital Services Act actually?
The EU Digital Services Act is to curb and to protect minors, right? It's to protect children. It's to protect it's to protect how they move around on social media, right? That's the aim of it, and it's so social media apps like TikTok will have to sort of implement more stringent security controls that would prevent children from creating an account, and even if they do create an account, there has to be adequate security parental controls that prevents them from having access to all types of content, which can be dangerous.
Say TikTok is fined by the EU, and that's going to be a fine worth hundreds of millions of euros, which is a crazy amount. What happens then? Will TikTok be required to be safer for users?
Well, that's the hope. The hope is for TikTok to implement more stringent security controls that would, that would look after children, and that would also, prevent them from also, disclosing more personal data, to prevent them from, having access to all types of content. And the hope of the Digital Safety Act is to also make it easier for people to report any illegal content, any inappropriate content as well. So that's the goal of the act.
All right, thank you, Babatunde, for coming on Newsfeed today and sharing your insights with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
With age often comes wisdom and experience, but there can also be physical and mental challenges. Well, in the spotlight for this year's US presidential election, we have Joe Biden and Donald Trump, both men just either side of 80. The real concern, not just age, but the cognitive decline that comes with it. Are they as fit as they claim to be for the highest office in America, or is gray getting in the way? Lara looks for answers.
No heads up, no hints. The White House dropped a bombshell. President Joe Biden was gearing up for a surprise speech in early February. After a Justice Department report said his memory was short due to his age.
Elderly man with a poor memory.
Well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
Was he about to announce that he was not seeking re-election?
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing. I've been president, and I put this country back on its feet.
Far from it. He was ready to fight. Biden welcomed the special counsel's conclusion that no charges should be brought against him for mishandling classified information. But he was angry at Robert Hur's assessment, describing the Democrats' cognitive state as hazy, fuzzy, faulty, poor, and with significant limitations.
My memory is not good. My memory is fine.
Yet, there is no denying it. Biden is 81, and that's got people worried about his re-election chances, especially after incidents like these. He has memory problems.
A solid meeting with what am I doing here?
Sometimes he gets names wrong.
President of Mexico, Sisi, did not want to open up the gate. And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said,
He pauses for uncomfortable stretches, searching for a word that's not quite there.
beer brewed here, it is used to make the brew beer. Anyway, I don't want to. The best way to get something done, if it holds near and dear to you that you like to be able to. Anyway, Putin's kleptocracy. Yeah. I was going to put him to the.
In a recent poll, 76% of voters said Biden's mental and physical health weigh heavily on their minds.
If he has a bad memory, how does he know what was the last legislation that he signed?
82 years old. It's a tough job, man. It's a tough job. He's already drained.
Meanwhile, Biden's likely Republican opponent, Donald Trump, is just 4 years younger. But only 48% of voters seem bothered by his age and fitness.
Trump is seem better than him because Trump is energetic.
No matter how much he loves to brag about passing his cognitive test, Trump's not immune to memory mix-ups either.
Nikki Haley is in charge of security. Just think of it. We would be in World War II.
The call for fresh faces in U.S. politics is growing louder.
I'm just trying to find a candidate I could trust, one that is possibly a little younger.
As Biden navigates the fallout from blunders, he faces a daunting challenge to convince voters he's fit enough to serve another term as the oldest president in U.S. history. But he hasn't been impeached twice, lacks a volcanic temper, and isn't staring down 91 criminal charges, unlike Trump.
There's a difficult debate online these days about child influencers and influencer parents using their kids as content. Some argue having a child, say, subtly promote a product isn't necessarily abuse. But one such parent's conviction proves that it's not always as simple as that. I'm talking about Ruby Franke, once a YouTube mom with over 2 million followers on her now defunct Channel 8 Passengers. She was arrested after her malnourished 12-year-old son ran away from her then mentor Jody Hildebrandt's home to ask for food and water from a neighbor. Franke and Hildebrandt both pleaded guilty to 4 charges of child abuse. Franke faces up to 60 years behind bars.
She committed horrible acts of child abuse. From May to August in 2023, Ms. Franke and her business partner held her 2 children, ages 9 and 11, turning 12, in a concentration camp-like setting. The children were regularly denied food, water, beds to sleep in, and virtually all forms of entertainment. They were beaten, and the 12-year-old was regularly bound hand and foot after he attempted to run away in mid-July. Both children have extensive physical injuries from the abuse that required hospitalization when they were found. The injuries from the binding to the 12-year-old are particularly awful.
No stranger to controversy, the British Museum has been hit with renewed calls to return a statue taken from Easter Island. A massive social media campaign is underway to return this Moai statue to the Pacific Ocean island, which is a dependent of Chile. After being inundated by online trolls since January, the British Museum was forced to close and limit comments on certain Instagram and YouTube posts. But that did little to deter outraged netizens who took to commenting on the museum's other posts to make their point. The call to action kicked off last month after Chilean influencer Mike Milford asked his 7.5 million TikTok followers to spam the British Museum with "Return the Moai" comments. His followers quickly went into overdrive over the statue known as Hoa Haka Nanae, which translates to English as lost or stolen friend. The museum has 2 Moai statues from Easter Island that were taken in the 1800s and gifted to Queen Victoria. In the past few years, the museum, like many other Western institutions, has faced calls to return many historic artifacts to their rightful owners, including the Parthenon sculptures, the Rosetta Stone, and Benin bronzes. South Africa's prime tourist destination was engulfed by a putrid smell this week. The source, a ship docked in the harbor since Sunday with 19,000 cattle cramped in inhumane and putrid conditions. The stench was so noxious that everyone was talking about it.
So when I was driving home, I opened the window and I was like, oh my gosh, I have never smelled something so rancid and putrid in my life. The cattle ship in the harbor, this is what we're talking about.
When you were alongside the ship, you couldn't smell anything. But like just moving away and thinking, oh, that was a disappointment. I thought you got this extreme whiff. It was as if you were in the ship.
Yeah, but I mean, can you imagine what it is like in the ship?
Images from animal welfare groups showed deplorable and inhumane conditions. The cattle were on the vessel for 2 weeks, and many of them had no option but to rest in dams of their own excrement. The Al Kuwait ship was traveling from Brazil to Iraq and stopped for more feed. Activists have highlighted that live export should be scrapped as it exposes animals to unnecessary stress, dangerous conditions at sea, and filthy environments. And I 100% agree with this. It's utterly inhumane. Well, in Cape Town, residents are breathing a fresh sigh of relief after the vessel's departure. Sony's latest superhero blockbuster, Madam Web, has turned out to be a big, embarrassing flop. Reviews were so bad during its recent opening weekend in the US that people who had purchased advance tickets sought refunds en masse. Sony had bet big on the film, which unfortunately comes at a time of audience fatigue over superhero films.
What do you want from me? I have no idea what those girls are coming. Why don't you want from me?
I think he can see into the future.
Madam Web had the worst opening weekend for any film set in the Spider-Man universe, earning only $27 million during its 3-day debut in the US. The Dakota Johnson plays the titular role of Madam Web, who has the ability to see the future and change it. But even she might have been caught off guard by the film's poor showing. The movie now has a dismal 13% rating on review site Rotten Tomatoes. Madam Web's unraveling doesn't just affect this film, but also lucrative spin-offs that Sony had planned. And that's our show. Find our latest stuff on YouTube and do subscribe to our channel. See you soon.